Okay, cool. We're back, and I think we can hear everybody. You guys, I really think we should revisit our favorite places to travel to because I think this is an important question. Bob, what's your favorite place to travel to?
Yeah, so like Ray, I also like just to go out in my backyard during the pandemic because it's just getting out in the sunshine. But when it's not the pandemic and after the pandemic's over, I love going to France. Just love the culture and the scenery there.
Yeah. Oh, agreed. Okay, Sayon, what do you think?
Yeah, same. I mean, after this year, anywhere is amazing. And so there's so much to do in San Diego since we're so blessed to have wonderful weather. I love hiking and going to the beach. And I just took up skiing this past season as well. So I'll hopefully explore more and taking a trip to Mexico later this year.
Oh my goodness. See, and that's, I know one thing we're all looking forward to is as coronavirus gets fought, we can start planning more vacations. So I know we're all looking forward to that. Gonna do Disneyland. That's my next trip. Awesome. I think we should dive right in and let's just start talking about coronavirus. I think it would be good to just go back to the basics and let's kind of go back to the beginning. What is coronavirus? What is this thing we've been talking about? And Bob, I know you have some really awesome visual representations, so I'd love to hear what you have to say. Just 101, what is coronavirus?
Sure, thanks, Leah. So coronavirus is a family of viruses that infect all kinds of animals, including, as we know, humans. And it's responsible for the common cold in some cases. Well, unfortunately, one coronavirus seems to have really gotten carried away with its level of infection and the type of disease it can cause. And so it seems to have increased ability via the spike protein to grab onto human cells and then be transmitted from human to human. So that's unusual. And so we don't really know exactly where it came from. It seems that it probably came from somewhere in Asia and probably from a bat, and then in some way mutated to have now this hyperactive spike protein that grabs onto human cells. And so as we've seen that the coronavirus can also mutate, so we're hoping that it's not going to mutate too quickly and that the vaccines that we're making now will stop it in its tracks and hopefully return us to normal sometime soon.
Yeah, awesome. Do you guys have anything else you want to add to that? Maybe Sayon, do you have anything you want to talk about what coronavirus is?
Absolutely. I think, Bob, you covered what it is. I just want to say how it spreads, right, is as important as what it is. And so I know a lot of people are wondering, and we didn't know everything in the beginning, and now we know a lot more. We know that really these tiny particles can be spread via droplets, and then some of them are so light that they actually stay in the air for a while, and so they can be aerosolized and hang out kind of in air. So that's why it's always better to be outdoors if possible versus indoors.
Yeah, because you have that airflow. You have a breeze maybe outside that room have that airflow. Definitely.
Exactly.
Okay, Sam, can you talk a little bit about coronavirus in San Diego? I know coronavirus has hit different to different levels, and we have different age groups we're talking about. So, we have a whole bunch of people are wondering, well, okay, how does this impact me? I'm young. Is our parents worried about it first? So can we talk about, I know you have some graphics and coronavirus look in San Diego County.
I do, and I'll share my screen in a second. So absolutely, yeah, especially for younger individuals, it is true that, younger individuals do not, this is about how it spreads, sorry, but it is true that younger individuals do not get affected by coronavirus as much, or have not been getting as affected as much as older individuals. That said, it's not zero. So when we look at all of our coronavirus cases to date in San Diego County, about 14% are in folks who are less than 18 years old. And here's a chart right here, just going over time since February last year till now, week by week, when you look at the different kind of age groups within the 0 to 18 group overall. And you see that the kind of the older 15 to 18 get coronavirus at a little bit higher rates than others, but still relative to some older populations, it's still lower. And here's numbers on terms of kind of how we're doing overall as a county. And you see that overall there's around 274. This is from a weekly report that we produced, so this is data ending last week. But just a general trend to know is that the average age, or the median age, is 35 years old, versus in folks who are infected, versus the median age of those who pass away. Unfortunately, the worst outcome from the disease is about over double that, right? 77 years old. But we do have 2 deaths that are in the 10 to 19 years age group, and so we have one death as low as 10 years old. But that said, the activity is much lower in the younger age group, and when you see here by different age groups, you see the numbers and then the rate in that line that you see here in the orange. And so the highest rates of coronavirus are actually seen in young adults, see the 20 to 29 years age. And then you have a decent amount of cases, like I said, in the 10 to 19 years old. But fortunately, most of those folks are not going on to get hospitalized or die, but some do, and there is a lot of suffering that can happen at home. And then many of these individuals who get it, who are younger, stay healthy, but then do pass it on to people who are more likely to have severe COVID infection. So it's still totally important for you to do everything to protect yourself, because by protecting yourself, you're also protecting your family, your loved ones, and your community.
You, Ray, and I know something that you do is you go around to all of the vaccination sites in town, and you they're all running and doing what they're supposed to. Can you talk about what do these sites look like? What goes on at these sites? How do they work? What are they doing to help protect people in San Diego?
So I was actually just at a site this morning. I was at the Sherman Heights location this morning. We have, this was an upstairs, downstairs location. So downstairs, we had people checking in. We had getting like their information, name, address, phone number, stuff like that. And then once they came up, we also was checking temperatures downstairs, just in case they might have had a temperature and just didn't know they had one, because everybody doesn't check their temperatures when they walk out the door. And so when they come upstairs, you see, depending on the size of the room, it's about like 5 maybe vaccine stations. And you'll come over, sit with a nurse and a ancillary is what we call them, but it's an office assistant, someone doing the paperwork basically, is sitting there. They'll go over a few questions with you about, do you feel sick today? Have you been vaccinated before? And different screening questions they go over, and you'll get the vaccination. You'll go and sit in front of a EMT. They have a section set up for your observation if you're sitting there for 15 minutes or if you're sitting there for 30 minutes, depending on if you've had any allergic reactions or anything like that. The nurse will tell you if you need to stay a little longer for 30 minutes or if it just needs to be the 15 minutes. And you sit there, hopefully nothing is happening, no reactions to the vaccine. And after that, you're all set. You get a sticker. Everybody loves stickers. And then you're all set for the day. And you'll get the vaccine depending on which vaccine you get, if you'll be back in 21 days or 28 days, or if it's the Johnson & Johnson, the one shot and all done, and you'll be vaccinated.
Awesome. I know it can vary day to day depending on how many people are there, but start to finish, when people get there and when they walk out, how long would you say it typically takes to get vaccinated?
Typically, the sites that I've been at, when I'm there, because I'm not there all day, so I'm only there for a little bit every so often, but it can take, with the 15 minutes, say 30 minutes from checking in to after the 15 minutes. But if it's a long line, you never know how the day is going. So it could take a little longer, but I'd say at least 30 minutes, you should be in and out. Maybe shorter, depending on if they're going quick or how's it going and the flow of everything.
Easy, quick and easy. Yeah, I've been out at a couple of vaccination sites. I volunteered, and we try to get them through really quick. We do. That's what we do. Okay,
That's the
cool.
best
Yeah,
part.
so vaccination sites are popping up around the county, we know. Let's talk about, I know we had a couple questions that people asked about masks. Masks are something that we have been talking about for the past year. Today, we had some big news that came out from the CDC saying that people who are fully vaccinated, so they are 2 weeks after their final vaccination, it's actually okay for them to go outside and go on a walk and not wear a mask. So mask, let's talk about what they do, how they work. I know we were saying that coronavirus is airborne. So what do masks do to prevent this airborne spread? Maybe Bob, do you want to kick this off?
Sure. So as Seon said, the way the virus is transmitted is through droplets. When you sneeze or cough, or frankly, even when you talk, you develop these respiratory droplets, and they can travel through the air, somewhere around 6 to 8 feet. And if it lands on someone else, or you touch a surface and then touch your face, you can then get transmission and get COVID-19. So obviously, one of the easiest things to do to minimize transmission is to wear a mask. And that simply prevents those respiratory droplets, not only from spreading out from your own speaking or coughing or sneezing, but it also makes it harder for, if someone sneezes on you, to get to the place that it needs to get, which is your sinus and your mouth. And so there's all different kinds of masks. I know there's a lot of controversy about what they should wear, what people should wear, when we can take them off after vaccination. But there are all different kinds, and I have a few here just to give you some examples. So, for example, some people just like to wear a bandana like this. This doesn't work very well, doesn't stop the droplets that can aspirate when you cough or sneeze. Other people will go to a cloth mask like this, and that's pretty good. Cloth masks also sometimes have the nose wire here so that you can clamp down the nose to prevent any of the droplets from getting in or getting out through spaces around your nose there. These cloth masks like this are also good. This one in particular is good because it has an interior layer that's a little filter inside of it, so that it helps to doubly protect you against any kind of respiratory droplets. You can see there's a little bit of a filter inside there. There's, of course, the N95 mask you hear a lot about. That's one that the professionals like me use, and these are very strong protection and also have that nice nose wire there that you can clamp down. But yes, as we're getting vaccinated, it will change the need to wear masks. For right now, we still want people, as you go out into public places where there's a lot of other people and there are folks that you don't really know if they're vaccinated or not, you should still wear a mask. And the reason for that is that while if you're vaccinated, you have very strong protection, the protection is not 100%. It's about 95%. So there will be the few rare people that still might contract COVID-19, even if they've been vaccinated. Now, the good news is that the vaccine will stop serious infection, but you still might get some symptoms. And so even if you have been vaccinated, for right now, as you go out into the public and you encounter crowds of people that maybe you don't know if they've been vaccinated or not, it's still a good idea to use a mask. But like you said, the CDC has recently issued some guidelines that if you know you're going to be in a setting where it's family members or others who you know are vaccinated, you know their contact history, then yes, it's okay to take that mask off. And likewise, when you're outdoors by yourself and you're vaccinated, it's safe to take that mask off.
Yeah. And I know we've had conversations also about 2 masks, 1 mask. What's the best way to do it? Or can you maybe rank them?
Yeah, so in some cases, masks really are not going to protect you completely. So here's one that matches my shirt. This one may at first glance look pretty good, but in fact it's not, because first it's not very thick and there might be respiratory droplets that actually penetrate the mask. In addition, there's no nose wire, and so I've got spaces where there could be droplets that do come out if I coughed, or if they landed on my face from someone coughing on me might get in. So if this is the type of mask you have, I would recommend double masking. Mask with something like this that does have that nose clip, and then also then put this over top. Now, on the other hand, if it's a mask like this one where I showed you that has the nose wire and it has an internal filter, you don't need to double mask here, because in essence, this is two masks in one.
Awesome. Thank you
Yep.
for that. Do you guys have
Leah?
anything else you want to add? Yeah, jump in.
Yeah, no, excellent. I just wanted to say that think of it like a seatbelt too, right? Like it works better if the fit is better, right? So the seatbelt should ideally come, below and not be at your neck, for example. And same thing with the mask; it should be fitted well. It should be fitted ideally, and so the nose wire helps. The double layering helps keep things out that should stay out, and keeps things in that should stay in, right? So appreciate that explanation.
I think we've all had masks, probably. Or is this just me? I have favorite masks. That's a thing this year. Favorite masks. I never thought I would have a favorite, but I have a favorite, and I like mine because the ears, it has an adjustable, so you can tighten it around your ears. Because I know I've worn masks that fall, and you have to sit there and pull it up all day, and you're touching your face and it's not tight fitting, and so that's not good. So we want those masks that you can maybe adjust and tighten so it's really fitted to your face, right?
Yes.
Cool.
Exactly.
Yeah, and another thing is we sometimes see people wearing masks wrong. So as you can imagine, this helps. But there's these still entry points right here and here. And so that's the way to do it.
Awesome. I like the, what is it? Sciences. I love that. Good old science mask. Awesome. Cool. And just as a reminder to everybody, if anybody has questions, don't raise your hand in here. What you want to do is go on the website, steamfestival2021.com/mainstage, and you're going to type in your questions, and then I'll ask those questions to our panel. So don't raise your hand in here, but if you have a question, make sure you submit those online, and we'll get them going. We still have another whole hour to talk and answer all of your questions. And everybody, just keep in mind, this is a really cool opportunity to talk to three amazing people and get all your questions answered. So definitely take advantage of that. And we did just get one question from someone watching. George wants to know, how did coronavirus make its way to humans? And I think Bob mentioned bats is what we think it came from. But yeah, that's a good question. How did it go from bats to humans?
Yeah, that's a great question, George. And the real answer right now is we don't really know for sure. So we are able to get some sense of where it came from, develop hypotheses, because obviously we can study the virus, we can break it open and take out its DNA and sequence it, and compare that DNA to the sequence of other viruses, other coronaviruses, and see what it's most close to. And I don't know if we have the graphic on the coronavirus family tree that Melissa could put up, but as we've done that DNA sequencing and compared coronaviruses to the SARS-CoV-2, which is the virus, of course, that is causing COVID-19, we found that it's most closely related to coronaviruses found in bats. And so we believe there was some means by which it was transmitted from a bat to a human. Now, whether it was direct or not, we don't know, maybe not. There are sometimes thought to be intermediate species, and one suspect species is a critter called a pangolin, which is an armadillo-like critter that lives in Asia, and it's possible that somehow the bat transmitted the virus to the pangolin, it recombined and developed some of these new infectious capabilities in the pangolin. And then pangolins are a source of meat in various countries, including Asia. So it's possible it went from the bat to the pangolin to humans by consuming pangolin meat. But ultimately, we don't really know. His closest relative, as I say, is a coronavirus from bats.
And I think that regardless of exactly how, one of the other takeaways is really knowing that we all live in the same world, right? And we share the same air, we share a lot of space with a lot of animals and on this planet. So these, what they're called zoonotic diseases, are possible, and due to the effects of, urbanization, deforestation, climate change, things like that, this brings us closer often with animals. So we have to be hyper vigilant in terms of our infection control, and awareness, and trying to minimize certain activities and practices that may bring us closer and increase chance of another type of transmission like this happening in the future.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I want to go for it.
Oh, sorry, I was going to say, yeah, good points, Dr. Sayone. And this goes for not just coronaviruses, but that zoonotic transmission that Sayone mentioned also goes for other types of viruses and infectious agents, that we're seeing more contact with wild species that we haven't seen before. And so we need to be very careful. In addition, one of the reasons for concern about COVID-19 is that human-to-human transmission, which is an unusual feature that most coronaviruses don't have, but definitely came up in the SARS-CoV-2, and then, of course, spreads throughout the world due to the global vacations and transportation and people traveling the world.
Yeah. Good points, everybody. I want to talk a little bit about mental health. We had some questions. People were asking, is it okay to feel sad during the pandemic? And, someone asked a question about, as a kid, I remember as a kid saying, I really wish I could not go to school for a whole year. And, we used to joke about that, but now it's a reality. A lot of kids were home for a year, and this thing that you maybe thought sounded fun in theory isn't so fun. we miss our lives, we miss our friends, we miss normalcy. And so I'd love to talk a little bit about maybe what message would you all want to get out to everybody listening? Maybe there's something you've done to stay happy or find happiness through the past year. Ray, I don't know, do you want to kick it off? Do you have any tips for everybody?
Sure. So always working, and also just to get a little sanity, I guess you can say, from all the craziness that's been going on. Most recent I've done, just did a staycation, just got away from the house, just went to a hotel, stayed there, and just forget about everything else for a little bit. Me and my husband, we've actually done it, I want to say 3 times since February, just to get away, because he's also working a lot and in the office. So trying to get a staycation so we can clear our minds, if it's just for a day, 2 days, whatever it is. This past weekend, I actually went, got a massage, just relax for a minute and forget about it was amazing. Best 90 minutes of my life. So I was able to do that. And that helps a lot, because you're just worried about the next site that's about to open, if we have the right paperwork for this, and make sure everybody's there, and they have so much little details that everybody does not know about. And so just need a break sometimes. So it was great.
And you bring up a good point. I know a lot of people listening probably are in San Diego County, and we may have people in other parts of the country too, but how lucky are we to live in San Diego County? And here to when outdoors are the only thing we can go experience, we can go to the beach, and it is beautiful weather. And so I personally, as a meteorologist also, have really tried to find happiness in just the outdoors and just simple things like going and sitting on the beach, maybe grabbing dinner and going to the beach, or just really enjoying our beautiful, beautiful outdoors. So you're right about the staycation. Yeah. We may not be able to travel, but we can still take advantage of this beautiful place where we live.
No, Leah, you're absolutely right that we are very lucky here in San Diego. I work with people and have friends all over the country, all over the world, and obviously friends, say in New York during winter, don't have the same ability to go outside that we do in San Diego. And for me, that is a great coping skill, is to go outside, get some sun on my head, breathe some fresh air. But yeah, it is difficult because besides being something that causes concern and fear, a disease like this hasn't been around for about 100 years, not since back in about 1917 with the Spanish flu. And so besides just the fear and concern, we are social animals after all. We like to get together. And so the way the pandemic has prevented that obviously has really put a strain and stress on everyone. So I think that the advent of video and doing things like we're doing today definitely help, continue to stay close to people, but in a different way, just with video and phone calls and things like that. And I guess I'd also just say to give yourself a break and cut yourself a slack. If you're feeling down, well, that's not too surprising. And just try to take care of yourself and take care of those around you, and give yourself a break, realizing this is a historic, unusual time.
Yeah, it's so true about technology. It's been such a blessing to have phones. Oh my goodness, to call someone up, call a friend, call family. That's so important. And I know something I've done is I really make a point. If I think about someone, maybe like my aunt or something, and I haven't talked to her in a while, I've told myself that if I think about her, I'm going to call her. And that's been a really good way for me to just stay connected with my family and my friends, is really making a point to just call someone, send them a text and say, hey, I was thinking about you. So I don't know if people listening all have cell phones. I didn't get a phone until I was a little older, but borrow your parents' phone if you don't have one, and just ask to, call grandma, call grandpa, call your neighbor, whatever, and just get on the phone and talk to people.
I fully agree. We are so blessed to both be living in San Diego and have technology like we've never had before. I mean, my daughter, I have a almost 2-year-old and a 9-year-old, and one set of grandparents had for the first time in 16 months finally seen my 2-year-old, right? And actually both kids, right? But because of that technology, they've been able to stay in touch, and she was able to recognize them in the interim and continue that relationship with them. But I wanted to say and echo what Bob said, really, that COVID-19, whether or not the disease has affected you personally or someone you know personally, it has affected all of us in many ways in our day-to-day lives and our livelihoods. And so I love this mask. At least the saying on this mask. I agree with Bob. There's better, probably other quality masks, like you said, with nose. But it says, mask your face, not your feelings. Hopefully you could read that. And it's part of our It's Up to Us San Diego campaign. And I love that. Really, if you're feeling down, etc., just please reach out, talk to someone. And then there are professionals, of course, you can also talk to if you want to. And please know that it's very normal for us to feel down and feel different, because times are not normal, as Bob said. So please stay tuned with that. We know that there are higher rates of mental health issues going, and that lead to people to the emergency departments or to doctors' visits, etc. in these times. So it is absolutely expected, unfortunately, that we are going to have other effects like mental health effects on all of us, especially those of you who are not going to in-person school, for example, etc. I do also want to say that it's important we recognize these effects, and we do address them. And even though we say and use words like social distancing, I hate that word, social distancing. Really, it's physical distancing, but you do not want to be socially isolating yourself from others. This is the time more than ever that we need to come together as a community. Even if we can't do it right next to each other, there are other ways that we could do it.
I think that's a really, really good thing to note. Yeah, and it's okay to be sad. I think that's something that everybody should remember, is it's okay to be sad, but you don't want to keep it bottled up. You want to find someone you can trust and you love, maybe family or friend, and talk to them about it, and just talk through it. I think that's always It's always a good thing to do and keep in mind. Okay, do you guys, I feel like we can maybe move on to another topic. What do we think?
Yep.
Yeah, I think we should talk about vaccines. I know obviously the vaccines have been our shining light helping get us out of the pandemic right now, but there are a lot of questions about how they work. Who should be getting them? Are there side effects or concerns I should be having? So, ages, I know we have a lot of kids listening, and right now only people 16 and older are eligible. So, if I'm 13, when am I going to be eligible? So, I think we have a lot to dive into. I don't know. And do any of these topics, do we want to start with one of these? Anyone want to jump in?
Sure. I'd be happy to start just by explaining what a vaccine is. And some people, I think, are still wondering exactly how they work, what they are. So let me tell you a little bit about what a vaccine is and even what the COVID-19 vaccine is. So you probably know that our immune systems are very powerful, and they have evolved to be able to help us fight off infections and foreign invaders, and that includes viruses. And so, in fact, when we do get a viral infection, we do mount an immune response. This is a response that includes attack by B cells, which make antibodies. The antibodies then seek out portions of the virus and neutralize it. The immune system also uses another type of cell called T cells, which helps to lead to a long-term so-called memory response that allows you to remember that foreign invader or that pathogen or that virus should it come back again. And so while in natural infections, you do get an immune response, it sometimes is not strong enough to ward off the infection and the disease. The viruses can replicate and spread very quickly and outpace the immune system. So one way to help educate the immune system, get it ready ahead of time for the possibility of infection, is using a vaccine. Now, what a vaccine is usually we take bits of the virus. For example, I mentioned previously this red protrusion here called the spike protein. And in fact, that's been the target of all of the vaccines that are being produced around the world right now. So my company, for example, has produced a vaccine against the spike protein. And that little bit is encoded in an RNA, which then is delivered via an inoculation into your arm. It makes that tiny bit of the protein and teaches the immune system what that virus protein looks like. Now, it's only a portion of the virus, so the vaccine itself can't replicate and cause disease, but it nonetheless teaches the immune system to be able to spot a full virus should it infect you and invade. And it gears up for that. And so if you do then get an infection, your immune system is ready. It's already been trained up and set to be able to recognize what that infection looks like. So typically we get a shot and then a boost later on. And the reason for that is because we want to first get the education, get the immune system fired up. But typically then the immune system would wane, it would go back down and not be as protective as you'd like. And so we then often, not always, have a booster shot. So we know that in some cases, some of the vaccines that are available now require a booster shot, others do not. And that just is dependent on exactly how the vaccine works.
So do we know right now if we're going to need a booster shot for coronavirus? Maybe depending on the company that produced it, will that change if a booster is needed, and maybe when a booster might be needed? And then third question, got a lot of questions, everybody. Is it just one booster, or are we talking, for the next couple of years or the rest of my life, am I going to need to be getting booster shots?
Right. So the easy and correct answer is we really don't know for sure yet. This is a new disease, and the vaccine is a new vaccine. However, based on what we're learning so far, and based on our experience with other vaccines, we do think it's likely that you will need a booster at some point, because while that memory of the immune system I talked about earlier can last a long time, it doesn't necessarily last a lifetime. So, like other vaccines, such as the tetanus vaccine, we do need probably to reactivate that immune system later on with a booster. Now, we don't know when, because we don't know how quickly that immune response that is initially triggered by the first vaccination, we don't know how quickly it will wane. We're thinking it might be sometime within a year, but we just don't know. So many scientists and vaccinologists like myself are trying to proceed with an abundance of caution and think that we probably should be ready and have boosters available should we need to boost. And again, whether that's in a year or 5 years, I don't know.
But it is
And
important to note that boosters are kind of expected or maybe typical. It doesn't mean the vaccine doesn't work. This is a normal thing for vaccines.
exactly.
It is, yes,
And
that's right. Go ahead, Dr.
exactly.
Sam.
Think of it like studying for a test or what you learn in one grade, and then you may not remember all of that 5 years from now, and so you may need a refresher, right? If you're going to be taking another test on it. So the other thing I wanted to say is that vaccines are amazing, and companies like Bob's are tracking how they're doing in real time, and so we have pretty strong data that they are really good at 6 months out, and that's the latest I know available, at least publicly available data so far. And these are the best public health tools that we have to get back to normal. This is our path to normalcy. We talked about things being different, and vaccines are the tool. So when you are able to, when it is your turn, meaning if you're 16 and over now, strongly consider getting vaccines to help, because even if you, for example, are not at high risk for getting hospitalized from COVID, you can help prevent the spread of the virus by getting vaccines. And I have a slide on herd immunity if you want me to share that now, or you could save for later.
Yeah, do it.
Okay. All right. So there's this concept of herd immunity, and this is another reason, we talk a lot, and you all are very young, probably mostly healthy audience. And so many of you think, hey, I even get the vaccine. What's in it for me, right? I'm not going to get that sick anyway. I might as well roll the dice. Well, it's true you can, and it's true that you might not get sick, like I said earlier, but vaccines are the safest way to get immunity. There are people who don't get hospitalized who still suffer a lot at home. There are people who get what's called long COVID, or they're long haulers, and then there are these long-term effects, and you don't have to get hospitalized for that, and then you can spread it to others. So there's a lot of reasons to get vaccine, but what I want to show you right now is the concept of herd immunity, or what some people and I like to call community immunity, right? To really prevent the disease from entering and the virus from spreading more, right? We want to do as much to kind of put dead ends or stop signs in front of the virus, so we stop the ability for the virus to continue to replicate, because that's its job, to replicate. And its other job, which Bob can tell you about too, is to mutate, and it'll continue to mutate. You may hear about these variants, which we can talk about in a little bit. So you see here on the top part of this graphic, right? These blue individuals are folks who are not vaccinated, not immunized, same word, same thing, but still healthy. And you see that COVID, the red folks are the people who have COVID, and then they continue to spread it, and then you get way more people because you have a very contagious disease like this. This is more contagious than the flu, maybe not as contagious as the measles, but just to give you some perspective, and you can spread it up to 2 days before you have symptoms, if you have symptoms at all, right? So it's very contagious. And so then you see this whole population, there's a lot of COVID transmission. In the second scenario, you have some people vaccinated, right? That's kind of where we are now. We have, up to 46%, let's see, actually, no, less than that, maybe around 30 or so percent of San Diegan 16 and over population who are fully vaccinated. So they're the yellows. And then whereas the majority of people, and especially when you're talking about folks under 16 can't even get the vaccine right now, then, you still have a lot of opportunity for the virus to spread. And then the last scenario is the ideal scenario where you have the majority of the population vaccinated, and there's always going to be a few people who just can't. Maybe they're too young, maybe they have certain medical conditions, and then of course it's their choice too. And so some people may choose not to. But the more people you have vaccinated, the more yellow individuals in this picture, right? The less the virus, even though you have still these two people who are red and have COVID-19, COVID doesn't really spread that much, right? Maybe a few people here and there might get it, but it really doesn't have that many opportunities to spread it. It's really like a bunch of dead ends or closed doors, if you will. So the more people we get vaccinated, the less opportunity the virus has to spread, and more importantly, or as importantly, to mutate further. Thank you, Leah.
Sam, that's awesome. Thank you for that visual. I think that's a really
maybe. Yeah, I just wanted to reinforce, can't stress enough the value of the vaccines. And I know we all, and I certainly myself, often get questions from people, including young people, about, well, why should I get vaccinated? Now, we know that young people don't suffer the same level of severity in some cases as people that get infected that are elderly. At the same time, there are many young people that upon infection still do come down with serious symptoms, and there is some mortality. But I do want to stress an important point that comes from the herd immunity in the sense of this being kind of a social exercise, is that there are individuals in our community that are at higher risk, whether it's babies, whether it's people that are immunocompromised. And so being able to protect them by having gotten the vaccine ourselves so that we can't transmit it to folks that are at higher risk, I think is an important point. Not to mention, of course, that it's protecting you, including young people that, while often don't get as sick, still in some cases can get very sick.
Yep. Definitely. Those are good points to make. Okay, so we've talked about young people getting the vaccine, and like we've said, 16 and up is who's eligible right now. But can we dive into when will kids younger than 16 be eligible? What kind of research is being done right now? Do we have an idea of a timeline?
Yeah. Yes, I think we do. Yeah. So obviously, when you develop a new drug, and vaccines are new therapies, you don't want to start with kids. They're precious, and we want to be careful in testing new therapies on children. So we started with people who are 16 or 18 and above, and those were the folks who started on clinical trials now about 6 or 8 months ago. And in fact, it's those people that are still protected that gives us a sense of how long the vaccine is going to last in protecting us. At the same time, as we've been watching everybody getting vaccinated that is 16 or 18 and older, we're seeing that the vaccines are in fact very, very safe. And so that gives us confidence now to start testing in younger people. And so currently there are data that have come out showing the efficacy and the safety in people that are 12 to 18 years old. And just in the last few weeks, Pfizer and Moderna, two of the vaccine makers, have submitted a request to the FDA for approval for using the vaccine in now younger people 12 to 16. So when the FDA is going to approve, let's hope it's soon. I don't think it's going to be too much longer, but it's imminent. And so I think those people that are in the 12 to 18 age bracket, 12 to 16 age bracket, any day now, I'm hoping that you're going to be eligible for the vaccine.
Sam, do you have stuff you want to add?
No, I fully agree. Thank you, Bob. The only things I'll add is that generally we do the stepwise approach in terms of expanding the age groups because of those safety reasons. And when, as Bob mentioned, younger folks are more precious, right? Or as precious, I'll say, but we don't want to take risks and we want to start with the adults first. So we are anticipating that it will be very soon, like Bob said, but we don't have a date. But please be ready and know that if you're 16 and over, today you could get vaccinated. But if you are younger than that, yes, you do need to wait. And they are having trials. There are also trials, even I know Bob talked about the data being submitted for the 12 and over from Pfizer and Moderna. There are trials going on down to 6 months that I'm aware of, and some even in this county for even the youngest of individuals.
Good. Yeah.
Yes,
so
that's
even
right.
if
And
go for it,
yeah,
Bob.
so for the 12 to 16-year-olds, you're right. We've already started the studies there. As I say, shown it's safe and effective. And it's by the way, very effective. It's close to 100% effective at preventing severe disease in young folks 12 to 16. And indeed, we are now testing, because of the safety, in much younger, from 1 to 12 years old right now.
Good. So yeah, for kids listening, you're
Thank you.
not being forgotten. We're just making sure we do it right. Okay, so we do have another question I want to get to. And just as a reminder for everybody listening, you can submit questions. If you have any questions for any of our three awesome panelists, you can submit questions, steamfestival2021.com/main stage. So main-stage. So you can go ahead and go online. There it is right there, popped up. Ding, ding, right there. Ooh, too much fun. So yeah, everybody point. There we go. That's where you submit your question. So we do have one question that just popped up. So Amy said she did get one Pfizer shot, and then she found out her friend, who I'm assuming she saw, tested positive. Does she need to stay home? Is she protected? Should she go get tested? What should she do?
Yeah,
So I
great
can start.
question. Yeah, why don't you talk first, Dr. Sayam?
Good. Okay. So definitely, if she was, it sounds like she was exposed to someone in a close contact, and the way the CDC defines that operationally is that you're within 6 feet of someone for 15 or more minutes throughout one day while they're infectious. So if she was truly exposed to someone, she still should what's called quarantine. And quarantine is basically taking her out of society, if you will, by staying at home, for example, to get ahead of the spread of the disease. So this allows her, just in case she develops the disease, to stay away from other people and stay at home, so she's not, for example, getting it and then infecting others. And that's especially important with a disease like coronavirus, because you can spread it and you can be contagious up to 2 days before you get symptoms, if you develop symptoms at all. And then they'd likely want to test, etc. The CDC and the state and us, we have guidance, of course, that fully vaccinated people don't need to quarantine after an exposure if they have no symptoms. But because she's only partially vaccinated, that wouldn't apply to her. Right. And many of you who are not vaccinated at all because of your age being under 16, that also applies to you, that you still would need to quarantine. And then we would recommend testing too.
Bob, anything you want to add?
Anything?
Yeah, just from the science perspective, it's important to understand what fully vaccinated actually means. And so the reason that we have found we need 2 shots for the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccine is that while the first shot gives you somewhere around 80% protection, meaning 8 out of 10 people will be protected and not get the disease if someone transmits it to them, it's still not 100%. And so we come back a few weeks later, as Ray said, it's either 21 days or 28 days for the Moderna or Pfizer vaccine, and get the boost, which then raises that protection from 80% to now close to 100%. And so if you've only gotten the first shot, you're still a little bit vulnerable. What's important to realize as well is that the vaccines don't work instantaneously. That little piece of the virus that I told you that's educating the immune system, it takes a little bit of time, about 2 weeks, before that education is complete. So after receiving your second shot, where now you're getting the efficacy up to somewhere close to 100%, about 95%, it still takes 2 weeks to become fully, quote unquote, vaccinated, where your immune system has been trained up.
Yeah, good to know. Good to know. Okay, we have another question. This one's for you, Ray.
Yeah.
And I think this is a good one. So you're out in the community. You're really seeing the social side of the story and of people getting vaccinated. It's a big deal. Can you share some of those experiences and how they've made an impact on you? I know as a volunteer at one of the Sharp sites, I remember one time I was out there and a guy looked at me and he said, "This is the best day I've had in a really long time." And it was just a really cool thing to see people. And they say that every day before the volunteer shifts. They say, "We're going to save lives today." But Ray, I'd love to hear, you're out there on a regular basis. What is it like to see these experiences of people getting vaccinated?
It's nice to see the different people, because you have some older people, you have younger people. It's always different, so it's never the same. And then you have the people that's terrified of needles, but they're still getting the vaccine. That's like sitting there. Today, a lady was like, "Oh my God, oh my God." And then afterwards, she's like, "Oh, I didn't feel it." So you have like a lot of different people, and they all, after they get it done, before they're like nervous and, "Oh my gosh, I don't want it," because of so many different reasons. They're scared of needles, they pass out before, or they just don't want the vaccine, but they want to get it now. And once they finish, they're always like, "Thank you, you guys are so nice. It went so fast." So it's always different, depending on the site, depending on the time of day, because everybody's attitude changes depending on the time of day and the weather. So that's always, we always try, at least when I'm there, because I usually don't work the vaccine sites, but with me going to all the vaccine sites, I'm there in the morning, and if they're a little behind or somebody hasn't showed up yet, I do start working, so I get to interact with them a little more than I probably am supposed to, since I'm only supposed to be there for one thing and I start doing other stuff. But they're all so nice, so sweet, and they're all so thankful at the end, and that's the plus side about it. Even this morning, it was freezing cold, and we had to go get like extra jackets, because I'm always cold, but I always keep an extra jacket. And people are coming in like, "It's so cold outside." I was trying to hurry up and get inside. And after, they're like, "Thank you guys for letting it go by so fast." So it's really nice to see everybody so thankful afterwards, even if they had a bad time getting in because of whatever situation. It's so nice to see the thankfulness and appreciation from everyone.
Yeah, you get to see the arc. You see the nerves when they first come in, and then they get the vaccine, and then maybe they feel better at the end.
Yes.
Okay, follow-up
true.
question for you, Ray.
Yeah, Ray, I'm not sure I've ever met anyone that likes getting shots, but I can tell you, at least when I got mine, I literally didn't feel a thing.
That's the best part.
I didn't feel mine
Yes.
either. It shocked me.
Yeah.
So, okay, Ray, follow-up question, and I guess
I just
anybody
want
can
to throw
jump
out
in.
the analogy. Oh,
Go for it.
I'm sorry. I just want to throw out the
You're
analogy.
good.
It's the same like masks, right? None of us like wearing a mask, but it's the right thing to do. So, we definitely encourage you all to strongly consider getting the vaccine when it's your turn.
Okay, so that's a good segue into this follow-up question that was stemmed from Ray's question. So Ray, maybe you can kick this off, but I think we can open it up to everybody. So if you've been vaccinated, why did you decide to get the vaccine? Was there a big motivator, or maybe one specific thing, or a couple things?
So I have been vaccinated. My 2 weeks is over, so I'm fully vaccinated. Yes. And I ended up getting the Pfizer vaccine, and there is a reason why I decided to get vaccinated. I'm going to do my best with this. So my aunt actually caught COVID. She actually passed away from COVID. So that is why I decided to get my vaccine, so that we can get back to a little normalcy. It's not like we used to be, but I know that getting the vaccine will help me not, if I do catch COVID, God forbid I catch COVID, but it will not be as bad because I have the vaccine already helping fight whatever is going on inside. So that's why I decided to get the vaccine just in case. And I know if she was able to get the vaccine, she would have gotten it. So it's all like, I feel like probably my whole family has gotten it because of that. Um, we want to be a little closer because of we haven't been able to be close this whole time. So that's the main reason I got the vaccine. I'm excited I got the vaccine. I'm able to see a little bit more people, not as many as I used to see, but I still do keep my distance just in case. Um, and yeah, that's why I decided to get it. And it's been great. I
We're
haven't had any
giving
symptoms.
we're giving you a virtual hug right now, Ray. Virtual
Thank
hug.
you.
And
I
hopefully
appreciate
now
it.
that you've gotten the vaccine, you can give your family real hugs. I know that's
Right.
it's so important. And so I'm sure there are kids listening right now who feel exactly what you're feeling. We have lost
Yeah,
too many people to
I try
coronavirus.
not to cry because my aunt actually passed away right before Christmas. She caught she caught COVID right before Thanksgiving. And so with right before Christmas, everything going on, we had her services at the beginning of January, and then my birthday's February. So it was really hard, like getting everything done. So I try not to cry. My aunt was everything to me, but that is why I got it, and I feel like other people should get it too, because you never know who's around you. It probably hasn't affected your family or anyone close to you, but it does sooner or later, because it didn't affect anybody at first. Like the whole first time people were getting COVID, nobody in my family caught it. And then my aunt caught it and it slowly got closer and on. I'm like, this actually is hitting too close to home for me. So that's why I decided to get it, and my family decided to get it so that we can fight what's happening just in case we end up getting COVID. Um, so yeah.
Your aunt will be so proud of you. I know she would. And
Thank
something
you.
we said before, and we'll say it again. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be sad.
Right.
We're talking about our family. We're talking about a really serious thing. And while we want to be optimistic and look toward the future, the reality is that we are taking this so seriously because we have lost family and friends. And so it's okay to be sad and talk about that. We can't forget that.
Very true.
Does anyone else want to jump in and
Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
say oh, go ahead, Bob. Okay, I'll start. I'll just say that Ray, I'm also just so thankful as a colleague that you got vaccinated, because as you all heard from Ray, she's out there on the grounds interacting with people just like you, Leah, right? Volunteering, and she's doing her job, and she's normally, put at some risk. So it's just reassuring. Again, these are not 100% foolproof, but they are very close. And as importantly, and I think even more importantly, a lot of people compare these efficacy or effectiveness numbers, but really what I think is even more important to compare and look at is the fact that they prevent severe COVID, like Bob was saying, really that preventing people from getting hospitalized, from dying. COVID right now, 19 disease in San Diego County is the leading cause of death for 2021. Last year it was number 3, but due to that huge winter surge and the after effects and the lagging in deaths, it's number 1 cause of death right now. For this year, I'm sure that'll change, but last year it was number 3, and we've lost too many individuals, and so anything we could do to prevent that is helpful. I also wanted to say, getting a vaccine is our path back to normalcy, and so that's really why I took it. I also have some occupational risks just due to the nature of my job. I do a lot of site visits. I do some training on testing and things like that, and so I got it. But personally and selfishly, I'll say that it's helpful just, for the freedoms that you get. And you see CDC added one more recommendation and expanded that today for being fully vaccinated. That said, many of us cannot get vaccinated or choose not to get vaccinated. And especially if you cannot because you're of younger age right now, please continue to follow that guidance. And I'll do my part to follow that guidance too, for fully vaccinated people, so I'm not increasing risk either.
Yeah, Bob,
Yeah, and I
do you
just
have
wanted
anything
to
you want
say
to
how
say?
sorry I am Yeah, I just wanted to say how sorry I am, Ray, to hear about your aunt. We hear about the statistics, now over 500,000 Americans have died from COVID-19, and around the world, it's a staggering number. And obviously, we don't want to be one of those statistics, but now it's a sad truth that many of us do know folks, people, loved ones, friends, relatives who have been affected, and in some cases have even passed away from COVID-19. So it's a terrible impact on all of us, both personally and as a society. And so the reason I got vaccinated was certainly because I wanted to protect myself and wanted to return to normal. But even more so, for the same reason as you, Ray, is that I realized that I could be a carrier, and young people especially can be carriers. As Seon said, that sometimes they'll be carrying and be contagious without having any symptoms. And yet the vaccine can prevent not only from you getting sick, but also from you then transmitting it to others, including people who may be more vulnerable than you.
Yeah. Personally, I have a good friend who is unable to get the vaccine because of her health history. And so that's why I chose to get it, is for her, because I can and she can't. So I need to do what I can to protect her. So that was a really big thing for me. And then I also, for the past year, I've been interviewing people who have lost family and friends, or maybe they got really close to death and thankfully survived. And so it's just, I think when you really meet and talk to those people who have been impacted, it really shows you how serious this is and how important it is to do what we can. And this is one thing I can do. I'm going to do it. Okay, we did just get a question from Celeste, and I think this is a really good question. And I know the answer to part of it because I covered it for a story that I did, but can animals get COVID? Specifically, can gorillas or other animals at the zoo, because they're all hanging out together, can they get it? And I actually covered this story when it happened at our San Diego zoo. So I do remember when this happened, but I'll let you guys talk about this and answer that question.
So,
yeah, sure, I can start.
Do you want me to start? Okay. Go ahead.
Go for it, Bob.
So, Leah, first, I'm very interested to hear about the story that you covered. I did hear something about tigers at the San Diego Zoo that got infected. But yes, animals can get infected with coronavirus. And I'm talking about not just the coronavirus family of viruses, which, as I mentioned, are numerous, and different varieties actually specialize in infecting different animals. But the SARS-CoV-2 virus, the COVID-19 virus, has been found in some animals. We don't know how they got it, and we don't really know how sick it might make them, if at all. But yes, some animals can get the virus. Whether pets are susceptible, I don't think we know yet. So far, the data suggests that your dog or cat is probably not susceptible, and certainly has not shown any. We haven't seen any signs that they get any kind of disease.
I just looked it up.
You
They did. We had a couple gorillas. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Winston, right?
At the San Diego Safari Park.
Was that the story that you did, Leah?
Yeah. I think they recovered, but they did test positive.
Leah, you probably
they found
covered,
it. I believe it was their feces.
Absolutely. And they did have symptoms. And so it is important to know that, yes, animals can get it, just like we got it from other animals. Animals can get it, and we can transmit to animals, although, like Bob said, is very unlikely, or to a lesser degree in terms of, for example, your household pets. There have been a few case reports for sure about like dogs or cats getting it. And then, like Leah said, and Bob said, at the San Diego Zoo, we've had animals that have come down with it. I do want to also take the opportunity to say two other things that are important, right? So there's testing. There's the treatment, and then there's testing to know whether or not people have anything. And so it's super important that, like what they did with the gorillas, they had some signs and symptoms, so they tested them. So if you have signs or symptoms of coronavirus, even if it's very unlikely to be coronavirus, it's always better just to test and rule it out or rule it in, so that we can act on it, so we can count your numbers, etc., and control the spread, do what we can do. And then the other thing is that the the gorillas did get a treatment called monoclonal antibodies. And so this is a wonderful treatment that you can give on an outpatient setting to folks at higher risk to prevent them from getting hospitalized or dying from COVID. It's really good treatment. And we do have a lot of our hospital communities, some of our community clinics, and even the county has partnerships where with the federal government and the state government where we can administer those medicines.
Yeah. And someone asked if we can follow up on, are the gorillas okay and what happened with that story? We just want to say that gorillas are good. They're fine. They recovered. And it was, I believe it was a staff member who didn't realize they were asymptomatic, so did not show any symptoms, but did pass it on to the gorillas. Yeah, they're good now. Did you have something to add, Ray?
Yeah, so actually before the vaccine came out, I used to go to different sites and test different people. And me and two of the nurses on my team actually got to go to the safari park while the gorilla had COVID. So we got to test the staff there. It was so fun. They wouldn't let us see the gorilla, sadly, because they said he had COVID and they didn't want us to get close to him. But we got to talk to all the people that are actually in the cage and everything with the gorilla. They said he was, I can't remember if it was a guy or girl, but they said that the gorilla was real quiet, wasn't eating and stuff like that. And then slowly was doing better and was like, the day we went, they said they had took some juice that morning and all. It was so cool though, because we were like, oh my gosh, we're at the safari park and got to go like in the back entrance and everything. So it was really nice.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. And thankfully you guys were there to help out. And the gorillas, I believe, made a full recovery. So we're happy about that. Okay, so follow-up question. While we're talking about animals, this is just a really interesting conversation. I love that we're having this. Celeste, great follow-up question. Can animals in the ocean get sick if they're underwater? This is something I've never thought about before.
I've not heard of any case reports of that, but excellent question.
So we don't know, maybe, Bob?
Marine animals can contract viruses. I don't think that there, as Seon said, there's been any reports of marine animals contracting COVID-19. Whether there are any coronaviruses that are infectious for marine animals, I actually don't know. But yes, there are types of viruses, certainly, that affect virtually all species on the planet.
Yeah, I wonder if any of our scientists here in San Diego, we have so many oceanography people, maybe any of them are doing some research. We could find out about that. Awesome. Wow, this is really, you guys, I'm really liking this conversation. This is good. So I think one thing that we should talk about is maybe a return to normalcy. And we mentioned this earlier, but today we got some news that if you're fully vaccinated, you can take your mask off if you're outdoors, you're not in a large group setting. As we take, maybe baby steps like this, is this what the future is going to look like? When are we going to get back to normal? Maybe, Sam, do you want to kick this one off?
Sure. I just want to start off by saying a lot of this, right, with a brand new disease is kind of like taking off and landing an airplane, right? It's always harder to take off and land than kind of coast through the sky. And so in the beginning, it was, very difficult as more and more restrictions were being put into place. And now we're kind of unwinding some of those over time, and hopefully we'll continue. But please know that across the world, majority of people aren't vaccinated. There are plenty of variants, and there are places like India that are experiencing significant surges more than ever before. So we don't really know exactly where we're going to go, but we do know for now that California actually has the lowest testing positivity rates across the country. And so we're doing pretty well. And so as we see more and more people vaccinated, it's kind of like turning down a dial. We're going to see the case rates continue to go down to a point where it'll be much more manageable, much smaller, and then there'll be kind of limited clusters of cases and diseases, and that's when we will know that we've achieved what we call herd immunity. And we know that we can look at vaccinations across the county, but of course, really herd immunity also takes into account your individual community, right? You might live in a part of San Diego County where the rates are higher than other parts of the county, or you may take more risky activities, like, for example, playing on a football team, which is awesome that you're playing football, right? But also you're super close to people, you're breathing heavy, or you're singing, for example, in a choir or something like that, right? There are certain activities that may be more riskier than others. So we'll get there hopefully eventually, and we'll start seeing those cases go down. But vaccinations and the other guidance, following the other guidance, is super helpful. Today, the CDC did say that now, if you're fully vaccinated, then for certain things, if you're walking, running, playing outdoors, etc., then you can rest assured and you could kind of be safe. But even if you're fully vaccinated, if you're going to large crowds, events, indoors, things like that, you still should be masking.
Yeah. Bob, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I'm certainly looking forward to getting back to normal sometime in the next year or so myself, but we often use the analogy of the light at the end of the tunnel, that the vaccine is the light at the end of the tunnel, but we're still in the tunnel. We're not out of it yet. And it will, to some degree, depend on not only the availability of the vaccine, which now is working quite well, but it will also depend on all of us. Getting the vaccine to get to the herd immunity that Seon talked about, making sure that not only are we protected, but those around us are protected. It will also, until then, be incumbent that we still use protection such as the masks and keeping 6 feet apart and not congregating in large crowds. So it'll to some degree depend on our behavior. But the optimistic among us are hoping that sometime in the fall, we will have enough people that will have received the vaccines that will achieve that herd immunity, and we can start then getting back to normal. It will be gradual, however. It's not going to be like a light switch that you flip it and we're back to normal all of a sudden. It will be this gradual progression that hopefully sometime later this year we'll start to see happening.
Yeah. And I know a lot of go ahead, Seon.
Oh, I'm just sorry. I was just going to say, and it's going to be a new normal. And if I could just share one slide, hopefully you could see this. Can you see that image? So this is a great table by the CDC, and you can see on the left they really talk about things being safer. They don't say if they're safe or not safe. They talk about activities that are the safest for unvaccinated people versus the least safe, and you can see there's plenty of examples. They're mostly, except for the top two, wearing masks, and they talk about these different activities. And then they have now this side on the right for fully vaccinated people, and you see that this is almost all it's all the safest, and it's all green, right? And even though some you still have to mask for now, it's all green, right? So you could see kind of these are motivations really to protect yourself, your loved ones, and help your community get back to normal, why you should strongly consider vaccination. Back to you, Leah.
Really, really good visual, isn't it? You can really see. I was looking at that today too, and I was like, wow, this is just a good thing to look at. Everybody should go look at that. It's on the CDC's website. Okay. So it sounds like, and I know it's hard for us to say, on September 22nd, everything's going to be normal. Like, we really just don't know the exact, and it's not going to be a one-day thing, but it sounds like maybe in the fall, things, school might be ish back to normal. You could maybe go back to soccer practice, ballet class. It's coming. It's on its way, right?
Yep, we definitely can see that light at the end of the tunnel, and I think we will arrive there, meaning back to the new normal, as Seon puts it, sometime before the end of this year, perhaps for many folks around the start of the new school year. But again, it depends on all of us. And as Seon says, it will be a new normal. Coronavirus won't go away forever just because we've been vaccinated. And as I'm sure for those of you who've been paying attention to the news, there's a lot of concern about variants, about mutant forms of the virus that might arise. And this is quite reminiscent of flu. So, we have to get a new vaccine every year because the flu mutates and the previous vaccine didn't work. Whether that will happen with coronavirus and the COVID-19, we don't yet know, but we want to be prepared. And so some of the behaviors that we're using now, we may need to return to if a variant does pop up that does seem to be resistant to the vaccine. Now, rest assured, scientists like myself are also preparing us for that possibility, that we're constantly studying the virus as it evolves. So far, all of the variants still are susceptible to the vaccine. In other words, the vaccine protects against them. But should one arise, we want to be prepared. And so that will be kind of a new normal. We'll have to keep our eyes and ears open and still be careful as time goes on, because we don't want to return to a pandemic like we've experienced this past year.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. So we just had a question from Diana. Is it okay to go back to school without being...
I'm sorry, Leah. For me, at least, it cut off at the end of your question.
Oh, can you hear me now? Am I back?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So Diana asked, is it okay to go back to school without fully vaccinated? Seon, do you want to maybe try that one?
Yeah, absolutely. The majority of folks who are in school age right now are not vaccinated. And so it's really, you have to look at your individual district and look at, they all have what's called safe reopening plans. We have a K through 12 sector call every week. We engage with a lot of the schools. And we have guidance for them. The state has guidance for them. And like I said, nothing is necessarily, you can't say if it's safe or not safe. It's really, is it safer? And are they taking all of the measures that they can to make it as safe as possible? Meaning, are they layering strategies like distancing, masking, isolating people who have symptoms right away, quarantine a class if they're exposed, and then possibly some schools are also doing some testing as well. So all of these kind of layered on top of each other, they're imperfect, imperfect kind of interventions that layered together really help a lot, right? It's kind of like looking at a bunch of Swiss cheese models, but together, all of these imperfect interventions do help and help decrease the spread of coronavirus. So we do see there are cases in schools right now in San Diego, but there are not that many, and it is very unique to have cases transmitted further within schools. So as long as there's cases in the community, there's going to be cases, of people coming to school or not coming to school who have coronavirus. But thanks to the efforts that a lot of schools, most schools are taking, really most of those cases do not spread beyond that.
Yeah, and our schools also, in addition to people like the three of you, they're making sure that if and when students are back in the classroom, they're doing it in the safest way possible. They wouldn't have you back there if they didn't put in the time and the research to make sure they were doing it to keep you as safe as possible. We have another question. Ray, I'm wondering if you can answer this one. So someone said, if I came in close contact with someone who tested positive, should I get tested the next day? I know you do a lot of work with the testing sites. Is it the next day, or should people wait a little bit, I think?
What I've heard, they might want to wait like a day or two, but not 100% sure. So I really can't answer that one too well. Dr. Seon might be able to get that one for you.
Sure. Yeah, no, we help draft local testing guidance. And so ideally both. And we have more than enough testing capacity at our county sites and maybe with your providers to do that. So you can get tested right away to see, if you already had it, maybe you gave it to them and you didn't know it, right? Because you were a silent spreader. And then the other thing, if you are negative, or if you only can choose one time to test, ideally you would wait 5 to 7 days after your last exposure, because that's kind of the median onset of symptoms is usually 4 to 5 days as per the CDC after an exposure.
Great. Thank you both for answering that. Okay, so we have a question
Leah,
about
I did want to say, sorry. I did also want to point out that even though I said 5 to 7 days, I do want to note that, the disease and what we know about it is that it can take up to, from 2 to 14 days to develop symptoms, even though it's unlikely to take that long at the tail end of that. And, like I said, the median onset is 4 to 5 days. There are a few, cases that do take a little while longer to develop after an exposure.
Good. Yeah, good information. Thank you. Okay, so a new question about the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. And I think I have a feeling I know where this came from, because I've done stories about the Johnson & Johnson vaccine being put on pause. So someone wants to know, if someone did get that vaccine, are they still protected? And I know probably all of you have been following the news on the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. So let's see, who maybe want to jump in and talk about the status of that right now. Go for it, Bob. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll certainly say at the outset that all of the vaccines that are out there, from Moderna to AstraZeneca to Pfizer to J&J, are all good vaccines. And that the Johnson & Johnson was put on pause was, again, I think, a testament to how careful we're trying to be with these vaccines. You need to put into context the type of sickness that these people got, and most importantly, the frequency. So we saw that there were a few people that got blood clots resulting from the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, but that's just a few out of millions who have actually received the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. And so compared to the potential of contracting COVID-19, it's a minuscule risk. And so I think it was simply that we wanted to understand these few cases a little bit more and exercise extreme caution. But the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is now approved and we can use it again. If you have gotten it, I think you should feel very assured that you are being protected and your chances of having one of these adverse events, as we call them, the side effect, is extremely low.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great explanation, Bob. I will just add a little bit that, right, these are the most monitored vaccines in the history of vaccines. And that, like Bob was saying, this is out of an abundance of precaution that, right, we're not only doing what we usually do to monitor vaccines, we actually have active surveillance efforts like vSafe, something that the CDC has, that after you get a vaccine, you're asked to sign up and you get text messages. I just got one the other day, like a few months after my vaccines, checking in if I'm still okay, right? So they're doing that. They're assessing that data in real time. And then what they saw here was a little bit of a safety signal that turned out to be a valid one. And it's not just that there are blood clots, but there are blood clots in the setting of having low platelets, which is really weird or unusual because you need platelets to create clots. So you don't usually see the two together. And so it needs to be treated differently as well. So part of this was also taking that pause and making sure that providers like myself know to treat people differently, because otherwise, if you treat them like the usual blood clots, you could be doing harm. And so, yeah, like Bob said, this is a small number of cases. It's 15 so far that I'm aware of, and with this kind of syndrome, and there are patterns. That it tends to be more often in females under 50 years old. So providers, there are fact sheets, there's information, and if anyone, especially females under 50, want to have another vaccine, then they can choose to. And thankfully, we have 2 other wonderful alternatives in the U.S. that have been authorized. But if they do take the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, again, this is a minimal risk. Even though it's a real risk, it's a very minimal risk, and one that we can monitor for and treat. And now we're all kind of have a heightened sense of awareness of this. So really, it's that 1 to 3 weeks after the vaccine, really watching out for certain symptoms, severe symptoms, and getting medical treatment if you have those. Over.
Good. Awesome. Thank you, Sayon. Okay, well, you guys, we have our last question. This flew by. So this is one, I'm actually curious. I don't know who's going to be able to answer this. I don't actually know the answer to this. Can teenagers volunteer at locations where vaccines are being done? And the person asking is 15. So sounds like a 15-year-old is interested in volunteering.
I will just say from the county sites, and Ray, you can tell me if I'm wrong. I know that we are not taking volunteers at our county staffed sites because we have enough staff. We're lucky to be in that position right now that we don't take other volunteers. I do know that other sites, for example, sites like we partner with, like the Sharp site that Leah, you worked in, and thank you, by the way, for doing that. They do take volunteers, but I just don't know to what their age limit is and cutoff is. But, there's no harm in asking.
Ray, do you know?
As far as I know, the answer is no also. I know they were talking about getting volunteers, maybe, but it is a strong all caps maybe. So not 100% sure yet, but hopefully they do. That'd be good for the teens to like be in there volunteering and see exactly how it is before they were actually able to get the vaccine. So that is a good idea, but I'm not sure if they're doing that yet.
Yeah, I know. I can say that I did volunteer at a Sharp site a couple of times, and I did see some younger looking people there. I don't know how old they were. I didn't ask them, but I'm sure you could always reach out to Sharp Healthcare, or UCSD has sites too. I don't know what they're doing, but if you are interested and there's a site near you, I'm sure you could reach out and ask them, and I'm sure they'd be happy to try to answer that question for you. But yeah, anything you can do to help, it's really fun. I always love my volunteering shifts. Okay. That's all we have time for. This just absolutely flew by. We do want to let everybody know if you have any questions that you did not get answered, which I think we got to most of the ones that were submitted, but you can email, info, INFO, at lovestemsd.org. I'll say that one more time. Info at lovestemsd.org. And we'll try to get to those questions. And also just have to give a quick shout out to our sponsors for the event. We have Pfizer, we have ABC 10 News, we have Live Well San Diego, we have the San Diego County Office of Education. So thank you to all of our sponsors for making this happen. I think that this was a really, really good conversation, a really important conversation. And I want to give everybody one more chance. If you have any final words you want to say, just wrap it up really quick. Sam, do you have anything you want to add to the conversation finally?
Just thank you for being you. Take your time. If you're sad, that's okay. Talk to people. Don't be socially isolated, and play. We all have a role to play. Just like, for example, climate change, right? Like, even if you think some older individuals may think, hey, I don't have a role to play because I'm not going to be on the earth for so long. That's not true. And just because you're younger and you may not be as affected by COVID in terms of getting hospitalized or dying, does not mean you don't have a role. So we all do. We appreciate you taking on that role and taking that seriously and being here to listen.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Sayon. And thank you so much for all of your insight. Ray, do you have anything you want to add finally?
Just when it's your time, get vaccinated, and do your part now so we can get back to our new normal. Wear your mask when you have to, do everything you're supposed to be doing. Don't just say, oh, I'm a kid, I don't have to do it. Please, please, please do it.
Yeah, thank you, Ray. Thank you so much for your awesome insight. Bob, final words?
We can see the light at the end of the tunnel, but we're not there yet. Many of us have gotten vaccinated, but there's still many more that are to go. We're looking forward to having the vaccine approved for younger folks as well, but that will be happening soon. So as Ray says, when it's your turn, I strongly encourage you to get the vaccine. It's our best weapon. Until then, maintain your social distancing, your 6-foot distancing, your mask wearing, your hygiene, but mostly just take care of yourself and also take care of those around you. This has been a very, very hard year, a historic pandemic that we've all worked through together. We're almost there. Hang in there just a little bit longer, get your vaccine, and new normal sometime within the next, I'd say, 6 to 8 months.
Yeah, well said, Bob. Thank you. Oh my gosh, thank you, all three of you. Incredible insight. I know we got a lot of really incredible, awesome, useful information out, and hopefully everybody listening learned something and maybe feel a little bit better, or maybe know the steps to take, know what coronavirus is. So thank you all for doing this. This was super fun.